mistake. What do we do? The driver asks. You've got to pull over, says his girlfriend. The cop car's sirens come on. This is serious. Then something strange happens. They hear a voice, on, coming over the radio. It's too quiet to hear. When the driver turns up the volume, the message comes out of the ear. It's a rough voice that keeps repeating the same phrase over and over. How is this message not from the radio? I don't know. As to the backseat and raised the voice, we've got to try and find Captain Allen. The driver's girlfriend is screaming to pull over. How far speeds out? Is right behind them, almost on their bumper. Its lights flashing and sirens blaring. The driver doesn't know what to do. Just try to find him. He starts to push down on the accelerator. Then it's better.
I know your family's honor is important to you, but we can't afford it.
It took me weeks to find that thief's den. I can't stop now, and I can't get the sword on my own.
So you're willing to starve your wife and daughter to reclaim some rusty old
I don't have any money. You better give me 5 seconds right now or I'm gonna bloody your nose. 10 seconds tomorrow, baby. I'm gonna bloody your nose. No, please.
Three passengers, one side, as the highway patrol officer steps out and begins approaching their car. The driver says everyone to relax, that this is going to be just fine. The passenger in the back starts to panic. He can't get arrested. If he does, it will mean that he loses his scholarship. He'll get kicked out of school. His whole life will be over. The highway patrol officer reaches the car. Despite it being late at night, he's wearing dark aviator sunglasses that cover half of his face. He stands in front of the door of the car and waits. The driver, feeling nervous and afraid, rolls down his window. The police officer doesn't move or react, though. He just keeps standing next to the car. Good evening, officer, the driver says. No response. The driver turns and looks at his girlfriend in the front seat. All she can do is shrug. He turns back to the highway patrolman. Did we do something wrong? There's another long pause. But then the patrolman finally reacts. He bends over and leans in close, sticking his head practically through the open window, putting his tight-lipped face right next to the driver's. Do you want my license and registration? The driver asks. The patrolman doesn't respond. He reaches up and slowly grabs the side of his dark aviator sunglasses. He pulls them down, and the driver finds himself staring into a pair of bright, red, glowing eyes. Evil eyes. Everyone in the car starts to scream as the thing standing in front of them opens its own mouth to reveal a big, black, gaping hole with no gums or teeth. A horrifying void in its face that screams right back at him. Most people have 2 kidneys. As you may have already deduced, this was no normal traffic stop. Certainly not a normal highway patrol officer. No, the entity that this group of young adults encountered that evening was one that dozens before them had the same misfortune of running into, and one that the SCP Foundation is actively trying to stop from engaging in its frightening and dangerous behavior. This is SCP-973. SCP-973 is not one, but actually 2 separate entities. The first, designated SCP-973-1, is a police cruiser that appears to be a model similar to those used by actual state troopers during the early 1970s, and its condition is much like you would expect for a well-used, nearly 50-year-old vehicle, with much of it being in an advanced state of disrepair. Eyewitness accounts of SCP-973-1 have described the police car as having numerous dents on the doors and hood, cracks in the windshield, multiple rust spots, and a rear bumper that looks to be held on with duct tape. The vehicle's driver and sole occupant has been designated SCP-973-2. This humanoid figure has an appearance that resembles a Caucasian male in his late 40s. He is dressed in the state trooper uniform that, like 973-1, also looks to have come from the early 1970s. And eyewitnesses have described him as being slightly overweight, balding, and sporting a handlebar mustache. Both the anomalous car and its driver will appear at night in a specific location along a particular U.S. highway. It is unknown exactly what will cause SCP-973 to show up on this road, but Foundation researchers have hypothesized that its manifestation may be triggered when a vehicle accelerates over a certain speed. You may think you're safe then if you stay below a certain speed, Unfortunately, you'd be wrong. It's unknown exactly what speed limit infraction will lead to SCP-973's appearance, with reports ranging from 35 miles per hour all the way to 70. But when it does occur, the driver will find that they are now a target. SCP-973 will materialize roughly half a kilometer behind the targeted vehicle, and will approach them at a high rate of speed. SCP-973-1 sirens will turn on, and its lights will flash. This also somehow broadcasts a message into the targeted car that is picked up on the car's radio, a message that urges the driver to run, often accompanied by several expletives. In most cases, the targeted vehicle will abide by the instructions over the radio and begin to flee, though it's unlikely that this is due to any mimetic effect. Rather, it would seem that most run out of pure terror. SCP-973 will then pursue the targeted car, leading to a high-speed chase. No matter how fast the targeted car is, though, the SCP-973-1 police cruiser will always be faster. And it typically takes no more than 6 minutes for them to be overtaken. SCP-973 seems to have no qualms about ramming into the fleeing car, which likely accounts for the extreme damage present on the patrol car. While it is unclear exactly what happens once 973 forces the targeted vehicle to stop, either through their own choice or by being rammed off the road, the results are quite disturbing. The vehicle that fled will later be located somewhere near SCP-973's spawning location, usually within roughly 6 kilometers of the road. Whether the vehicles that are found that far from the road drove there in a panic or were somehow transported there by anomalous means is unclear.
Need a ride? Where do you want to go? Climb and back, and we'll be off.
country. I mean, do you think you're safe?
First time to Solitude?
Are you gonna
It's a beautiful old city. Capital of Skyrim, but I'm sure you'll...
Okay, and I see this. I see what's happening in the country. It blows my mind that there are parents who have young kids who still think, no, man, no, suck it up right back. All of our other rights have limitations, but when it comes to guns, no limitations whatsoever. You guys make me embarrassed to be an American. And then they want to turn around and tell women, oh, we care about babies. We care about babies. So we're going to go ahead and decide what you can and can't do with your own body because we allegedly care about babies. You don't care about a damn thing. And I'm so disgusted with our lawmakers for being so craven and so concerned with their own goddamn financial health that they turn their backs on us, watch children die in cold blood, and then go on vacation. Memorial Day weekend. Time to get together with the family, have a barbecue, and not think about the families who just lost their kids in another mass shooting in this country.
So now let's break down the terrible ideas in Republicans. So if you jam the kids in a cage, there's only one way to get in. Everything else is locked down. They're in a maximum security prison, school. And what if the shooter gets past the one security guard?
If you come to Solitude to join the Legion, speak to Ricker.
Especially because they're cowards.
If not,
and they'll say,
keep your nose clean while you're here.
Your kids are dying, that's not my problem, especially if they're poor or brown. So they'll use it as an excuse to not go into school. Because once you get past that one door, it's super easy to barricade it as this guy did with a door inside the school. And they'll use that as an excuse. It's the world's worst idea. Let alone the fact that we're sending our kids to concentration camps because the right-wingers have to have their guns. They're telling you.
Tell them he didn't do
we
it.
care more about our guns than we care about your kids' lives.
Sorry, you need to
We
go
would
home.
rather have...
Go home and stay there until your mother comes.
Traitor!
Get on with it!
You betrayed your uncle's son that betrayed his high king. Best she know now, Atone.
Then lose our hobby. It's not for
Rodria,
hunting, it's not
you
for
helped
self-defense.
Ulfric Stormcloak escape the city after he murdered Hiking Torrent.
Go into the woods.
Opening that gate for Ulfric, you betrayed the
Get off
son.
on it. And he knows that he kills the kids. He doesn't care.
There was
Look, a lot of the right-wingers are sociopaths. So, if you told them, look, no other country has these kind of mass shootings because they don't allow assault rifles. We're the only ones that allow assault rifles, and our kids are butchered on a daily basis. They will tell you, I don't care. I'd rather have my gun than your kid. That's a fact. That you can't say, well, no, just as many kids would die if we had passed
I'm telling you,
a ban on assault
Ulfric's
rifles,
planning an attack on Whiterun.
He'd be insane to try. He doesn't have the men.
That's not what my scouts report, sir. Every day more join his cause. Riften, Dawnstar, and Winterhold support him.
It's not the cause.
I've got a good feeling about you, and I don't often get good feelings about anything. A warrior knows to trust her gut. I'm not going to go through the normal process with you. I've got a little test lined up. Pass that, and we'll talk about you joining the Legion. Is that confidence or bravado? Confidence I can use. Bravado gets soldiers killed. We'll soon find out. I'm sending you to clear out Fort Haragstad. If you survive, you'll pass. If you die, then I'll have no further use for your corpse. The ancients built many of the fortresses that dot the landscape of Skyrim. Sadly, most have fallen into disrepair, and nearly all have been overrun with bandits or other vagabonds. Fort Haragstad is one of the few that remains mostly intact. We're going to install a garrison there, but first, you're going to clean out the bandits that have moved in. Good, that's what I want to hear. Now go make it happen, soldier. Call it whatever you like, General. The man's going to try to take Whiterun.
Jarl Balgruuf.
He says, well, as long as you're paying me, I don't mind dead kids. So Dan Patrick, Greg Abbott, Ted Cruz, they couldn't have helped us shoot her anymore if they were on the
Balgruuf refuses the Legion's right to garrison troops in a city. On the other hand,
Professor Silver, and in today's class, we'll break down the history of Ash's splice, detailing how it went from a crybaby Gligar to a squat. This video is brought to you by Prior to picking Ash, Gligar followed in Gliscor soundways into a city filled with other life. The wind currents formed by the city's skyscrapers prevented them all.
You should see me when you get bored, stranger.
Instead found sustenance by stealing from the local town to meet their anti-angered Ash and riding with some change. Sending an officer Denny inspired to send them home. Team Rocket disrupted their plans, but Gligar escaped their capture. It was too defeated to get caught by the trio's net, so it flew to its friend's aid, cut them free, and fell into Ash. Gligar flew away thereafter, but reunited with Ash around the same time that Paul got Gliscor. Ash had hoped for Gliscor to leave Gligar home, but Paul cared for him with plans. Gliscor gone, Gligar was forced to take charge of the meetings, excelling in the position. It executed Ash's command, letting Gligar revoke his center and position them for a boy to come. Rather than go home with them, however, Gligar stayed behind and asked to join Ash's city. Ash accepted, likely because he found it humorous, adorable, and potential. Meeting with Ash was a dream come true for Gligar, so it hugged him whenever summoned. Ash appreciated the affection, but initially hesitated to begin the battle as it almost no experience. Instead of letting Gligar battle and lost their strategy, lost the battle. Ash had him watch him from the sidelines. It wasn't until the bells were singing that Gligar finally got his first battle. Opposite Dodge Maneri, it dodged his punch with his X-Scissor, shot off sand attack into the Dicey, and walked skill. Unfortunately, it failed to prove itself ready for the Missile Legion. It volunteered for the gym battle in our cup run of Bellwood, but Ash opted for Turtwig, Pikachu, and Weasel in the episode of Thrasher, Morse, and Power, likely because Gligar was a bad plot. It's too bad the Pokemon World doesn't have our sponsor Skillshare, as I'm sure the online learning platform would have had Gligar covered. Skillshare offers thousands of avenue classes, all of which allow you to expand your creative horizons, explore your passions, and learn new skills at your own pace. For all of you aspiring content creators, I can't imagine a better platform to start. I recently took a course on mastering TikTok by Taylor Moore, and it used many of the learnings provided to grow my presence from 0 to 1,000 followers in only 6 months. Having never posted to the platform before, I found her insights entirely invaluable. I've also used Skillshare to bolster my YouTube presence, as it allowed me to take classes on thumbnail design, writing, and storytelling. If you're like me and love to level up your skills, I can't recommend it enough. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the first link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. And now back to Gligar's history. In Shincharge, Ash found to help Gligar become a better flyer by using it in many battles. Their first opponent was supposed to be Rock Pseudo-Winner, but the trio's arrival led it to fly into Paul instead. Because Paul scared Gligar, it challenged his Gliscor in an effort to redeem its confidence. In spite of its eagerness, however, Gligar felt that the loss was traumatizing, so it developed a fear of it. Ash did his best to tolerate the phobia, and ended up exploding in Gligar by being he yelled at the Pokemon for powering against Weasel and Turtwig, so Gligar flew off into the forest in shame. Whilst there, it met Gary, Ash's old rival. Gary wanted to help Gligar topple its fear, so he dabbled it in jumping. Over the course of their training, Gary discovered that Gligar feared not only getting hit, but also heights. In order to boost its self-esteem and induce evolution, Gary offered Ash a race with him. Ash welcomed the gift, but didn't let Gligar hold the item until it overcame its fears and transformed. Luckily for Gligar, it did just that, while saving Ash from one of Team Rocket's biggest schemes. Immediately after receiving the fang, Gligar evolved into Gliscor, rescued Ash, and blasted off the tree. Evolution supercharged Gliscor's abilities, but didn't give it full mastery over flight. Its lack of skill in the air was used for comedic relief in both the Cytostock sphere and non-rock. Despite the setback, however, Gliscor maintained an optimistic outlook throughout most of its time on the series. It often appeared an emotional mess, but no matter how many times it stumbled or got left behind, it never stopped trying to improve its team. As a result, it appeared in many battles. Gliscor trained with Paul's Cortera and tied with Barry's Rosemary and Barry's busting out all over, and beat the trio in Jumping Rocket Shoot. Due to the experience it gained from the many battles, it learned Fire Tank prior to a speed. Using the attack, it throttled the Pyro's Slime types, and proved itself ready for the opposite Byron's Bastiodon, it fought at the two defensive types. At the battle
battle started, Bastiodon shielded itself from skill, stopped Fire Fang, sent Glycor flying, and fired on Flash. Although Glycor dodged the blast, he landed a flurry of Fire Fangs. Bastiodon freed himself, retaliated with Flash Cannon, and connected with Iron Man.
You're making me angry. See you in pieces. I yield.
He lost several battles thereafter, but continues to amount to fun. At the same point, Slide 37, Candace's Snover with Pepsi and 14. Paul's Cordial is the same. Pedal to the metal in a multi strategies. Surprisingly, Glycor got off to an incredible against Paul's ace. It obscured Torterra's vision, made many blows, and dodged several of the Pokemon's attacks. Unfortunately, the lead evaporated after Torterra intercepted Steel Wave and escaped. Although Glycor freed himself with Fire Fang and returned to its Pokeball, it fell in a frenzy plan upon returning to the battle. In unfriendly defeat, Glycor overcame the sorrow it felt in losing by devastating T-Rock with its allies. While Glycor didn't always succeed in battle, it never failed in helping its friends. Whenever Ash required its help, it was often the first of all to do. He went scouting sides to every story, here even unlocking the Red Chain of events, and fully programmed the battle against Toxic Road. The battle finale went. With every appearance, Glycor became more and more confident in its abilities as a flyer. In mastering current events, its wish to master flight led it to train with Air Battle Master. McCann tested its strength with the Scizor, but found it entirely lacking in power and promise. Because Glycor couldn't read the air, it failed to land a single attack. Scizor, on the other hand, connected many times with Metal Claw, Double Hit, and Hyper Hit. After Scizor seized victory using one last Double Hit, McCann declared Glycor worthy of his time. The declaration deeply repressed Glycor, so Ash each days thereafter helped him train all the attackers. It became an adept flyer by the morning, so McCann relented to a rematch. The battle unfolded totally differently from the one they had to lead in Spain, as Glycor had learned how to lead the waves. Showing great progress, it put on pressure with execution, evaded Metal Claw, responded to Double Hit with Speed Attack, evaded Fire Fang, tanked Double Hit, and damaged Double Hit. Glycor also impact compensated for the recharge period by retreating. But Scizor won the battle anyway, as it matched Glycor's very next blow and shot off Hyper. Even though Glycor lost, its unrivaled ambition, massive boost in power, and desire to be ever stronger earned it McCann's respect. The man's acceptance was a two-edged sword, as his offer for Glycor to be his equal meant separation from Ash. Getting Glycor to depart from Ash, but it did so anyway, as it desperately wanted to become more powerful. Thanks to McCann's training, a total loser by the time Ash recalled the incident. Glycor joined his team in working on a right move, because Ash wanted to fight Paul for the same exact team. After showing Ash how great a flyer can become and the ability to strategy.
Results. During the assault on the Capitol, extremists reportedly coordinated online and discussed how they could hunt down the vice president. Journalists in the Capitol reported they heard rioters say they were looking for Pence in order to execute him. Trump's supporters had erected a gallows on the lawn in front of the Capitol building. Another group of rioters chanted, "Hang my Pence," as they stood in the open door of the Capitol building. You can hear the security alarm from the door in the background, and you can hear the mob calling for the death of the Vice President of the United States. This wasn't an isolated area or incident where that was being told, where that was being said. It was going on everywhere. Here's another example of the crowd outside yelling, "Bring out Pence! Bring him out!" After President Trump had primed his followers for months and inflamed the rally-goers that morning, it is no wonder that the Vice President of the United States was the target of their wrath after Pence refused to overturn the election results.
And remember, having watched that, the thing that I've said countless times, that it wasn't an impromptu bill. They didn't show up in Washington, D.C. on the mall between the Capitol building and the Washington Monument, and then there was just lumber laying around with bolts and nuts and washers. Look at all this lumber. Let's just throw together a hanging stack. This was planned. They brought these items with them to erect on the lawn of the Capitol as a symbol of intimidation, as a symbol of lawlessness, as a symbol of insurrection. Now we're learning testimony of House Electoral investigation that Donald Trump expressed support.
I fought worse than you.
For just a moment, think about all that you know about Donald Trump. Coward, weakling, rat dodging simp, fake, phony, fake.
Easily.
Only disloyal.
Trade a Stendar while you can.
And with Vice President, literally understood the United States Capitol, Donald Trump expressed support for hanging Mike Pence in the Capitol riot January 6th, 1995. So I kind of heard that hanging Mike Pence
Mount your head on
No sign of him.
expressed support for the project. Hanging is number 2. 3 people told me. I'm going to read from this article. The January 6th Select Committee has heard testimony indicating that the then President Donald Trump,
Prior to support the Capitol reaction, Mike Pence expressed support for hanging his Vice President, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. White House Chief of Staff at the time, Mark Meadows, was in the dining room off the Oval Office with Trump at one point during last year's Capitol attack, the committee has been told. Meadows then left the dining room and informed other people nearby that Trump had signaled a positive view of the prospect of hanging the Vice President. Meadows' account, as it was described in the committee, came after some members of the mob converging on the Capitol had broken into chants of "Hang Mike Pence." Those chants were a reaction to Pence's decision to accept electoral votes that indicated Joe Biden had won the presidency. Politico could have not independently verified the veracity of the claims regarding Meadows' comments. 2 of the people who spoke for this story said the committee has heard testimony on this topic from more than one person,
reached for comment. I always like to listen to what they have to say. Reached for comment. Trump spokesperson Taylor Budowich blasted the committee. Now I'm reading this statement from Budowich. It's a paragraph long. But I want you to remember and notice as I read the statement that what you're not going to hear is a denial. They don't just flatly say, that's not true. That didn't happen. Donald Trump did absolutely in no way support the hanging of Mike Pence. You're not going to hear that. You're going to hear a bunch of diversion, jingling of keys, hoping to distract from the actual question. This partisan committee's vague leaks, anonymous testimony, and willingness to alter evidence proves it's just an extension of the Democrat smear campaign that has been exposed time and time again for being fabricated and dishonest, he said. Americans are tired of the Democrats' lies and the charades, but sadly, it's the only thing they have to offer. Dumb shit, Taylor didn't say untrue, categorically false. He didn't say that. Oftentimes, what they don't say says a lot more than what they actually do. And Donald Trump wants to run for re-election. Donald Trump wants to be the president of the United States after having tried to overthrow the government, retain power, reassert or with the possibility of murdering the vice president. Email me daily at thalmor.com. I invite you to follow me on social media at thalmor, Twitter, TikTok. Follow me on Facebook. I do something for you this day that brings you value in our daily consider look to join by the door of the show. You can now member for $1.99 or go to patreon.com/undoubtedpodcast.
Never should have come here. No one messes in order. You're a fool to fight.
bucks on it. We'll give you guys a link down below if you just want to check it out. Link down below. It's very, very sick. So, as you guys may or may not know by the title, or me talking about this, or seeing it, we actually did have a little bit of a sneaky, although seemingly kind of somewhat smaller PlayStation 5 restock as of today. So, as of today, there was a little bit of an Amazon drop that happened around like the 10 o'clock range or so, in your time zone, and it was kind of a quick one. So, as you guys know, we've kind of been seeing a lot more of the in-store restocks. We've been seeing Best Buys up in stores, Target's up in stores.